Hello and welcome back to the Monsters of Monster Hunter Double Cross, where today we are dealing with Kut-Ku. And this one exists in quests by itself without any bugs. And this quest is in fact a key quest. I mean, I've already done all the key quests, but I mean, it's a key quest. And we can even get some small fire res in addition to our attack up and polisher. Yeah, let's go play with this bird. A lot of people have a great fondness for Yian Kut-Ku because it was the monster that introduced them to hunting large monsters like for reals. It wasn't that for me. And honestly, I don't really care for Kut-Ku that much. It looks doofy. Its fight isn't terribly interesting. Peko is basically a better Kut-Ku with an interesting gimmick to boot. But, like, Kut-Ku does have some charisma to him with those big ears. And ever since they added Khonshu to the game, in a game with Kut-Ku, which was actually the first game they added Khonshu, so since they added Khonshu, Kut-Ku's had a neat thing going where he eats them. Also, they did do a really good job on the textures on Kut-Ku in this version of this game, so he's got that going too, and there goes ears. Yeah, just like, look at the scales on those wings. Look at the shell on his back. Kut-Ku's got some neat textures, and also Khonshu bowling. G-rank Kut-Kus are silly. But still, I would prefer to see the president of the Devil Joe fan club make a return. But yeah, I do get why there's a lot of people who have a great fondness for Kut-Ku. Like, he's not a bad monster. I just feel like Peko does everything Kut-Ku does better. And interestingly enough, in Monster Hunter Stories, I also prefer Peko over Kut-Ku. Because Peko has got some useful support moves. More Khonshu bowling. It's kind of funny how far that actually launches you. And I like how the Khonshu try and burrow away as soon as they can, too. They didn't want to be out of the ground. One thing I will say in Kut-Ku's favor, he lets us hear this music when we're fighting him here. There's a lot of monsters that do, but I like this theme. It's a good one. Ruined Ridge has good music. Also, unlike a lot of monsters, Kut-Ku's face is not his weakest spot. At least not for cut damage. For impact damage, I think it is. But for cut damage, it's the wings. And it's looking like we are definitely going to have to do another Kut-Ku. And we're going to want to do one that lasts a bit longer. So I think once we're done with this one, we're going to do a Hyper Kut-Ku. Because Hyper Kut-Ku is like Kut-Ku, but hyper. Keeps things a little more interesting, I think. And I should have painted the Kut-Ku because I don't really know where it went. Hey, I found where it went. There we go. But one nice thing about the Kut-Ku dying so fast is we get some time to really just look at its textures. Because again, Kut-Ku does have some good texture work done on it. Like, I feel like the top of the tail is probably the weakest spot, because texture is visibly lower res there. It's probably stretched a little, but like on the leg, that's pretty nice. And the wings are really, really nice. Like, except for where like they connect with the body, there is some stretching. But for the most part, that is some very nice texture work on the wings. The fact that you can see like these little pock marks on the beak, that's kind of cool. There's just, they did a lot of good texture work on Kut-Ku. I'm a fan. Especially like if you don't get super close up, you don't even notice the issues. Which is exactly what they want to shoot for, really. So let's go find us a Kut-Ku who will stick around a bit longer. Even though I still wish it was Peko. Peko had charisma. Peko had personality. Peko had so many things Kut-Ku doesn't. Also, I really prefer Peko's color scheme. Though that's just down to personal preference. Actually, pretty much everything's down to personal preference, but still, it is my opinion that Peko is just a straight upgrade over Kut-Ku. You're allowed to disagree, but I'm allowed to think you're wrong. So off we go to the ancestral step to fight a rather angry chicken. Gotta say, this place looks way nicer than it did in 4U and Generations. Must be the fact that it's got new textures and is outputting in 1080p instead of 240p. It's just a little bit of a difference. Like, it's not an exaggeration to say that the 3DS had the same vertical resolution as most NES games. And the games did look great on the 3DS. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that, oh boy, do they look nicer here. Like, it's no lie to say that the Monster Hunter games were some of the nicest looking games on 3DS. They were pushing that system hard. But they've got so many more resources to use here on Switch, and I'm glad they're using them. That wasn't what I meant to do. Ow. Yeah, this may be a Kut-Ku, but it is a Hyper Kut-Ku, so it can do damage to me. That's a thing I have to remember. It's been a while since we fought a monster that could actually think about harming me to any real extent. Bird, where are you going? Oh, you wanted to get a nice runway, huh? he tried to go bowling, but we flinched him. I believe that's just poor sportsmanship right there. Like, if someone's winding up to toss their ball when bowling, I don't know what it's... There's probably some term for it, but I'm just going to say toss their ball. When someone's winding up to do that, and you, like, punch them and cause them to flinch during, and thus cause them to drop their ball, I feel like that's probably some sort of foul. There's probably rules against that, and yet we just completely ignored them. We are not very sportsmanlike bowlers. I can tell you that much. Okay, how did I manage to not jump off of anything for that first roll? Got the ears. Ow. Okay, bye. Let's see if we can actually watch him go where he's going. We can. I really like watching monsters actually fly from place to place. It makes me kind of sad that they increased the elevation from which they do so, starting with Gen 3. Because in Gen 2, they actually did it pretty low, and for most monsters, you could actually watch them pretty easily. But then in Gen 3, they made them all fly much higher up to leave the area. So it became harder to see those animations. And Quetzalcoatl used to glide pretty low altitude from area to area, but then in Generations, for whatever reason, they made him do high altitude flight. And it's like, but why? It was cool watching him go low altitude area to area, but maybe they did it so that you wouldn't think to shoot them down. Because, like, they've been doing a lot to try and make it so that monsters trying to leave the area aren't just sitting ducks. Like, in 3rd gen, I guess they did the high altitude thing, and then sometime in 4th gen, they made it so that it's impossible to flinch a monster when it's trying to leave. And then actually in this game, it's impossible for a monster that's trying to leave an area to get caught in a trap. Like, I've actually seen a Geodrome limp directly over a shock trap. And that was certainly interesting. Way to spook the bird, cat. You actually did it with not terrible timing. Though he didn't get a sparkly, because you don't always get those. Which is a shame. Well, at least it waited till after we sharpened to hit us with the tail. I remember back in, like, I think it might have been Try, it might have been Freedom Unite, but if Blos was trying to leave an area, might have been both. If a Blos was trying to leave an area and it wasn't raging, then you could toss a Sonic Bomb to get it stuck after it burrowed. And you could do that repeatedly because until it enraged, it would never try to do anything different. I mean, that definitely happened in Freedom Unite. I don't recall whether or not it still happened in Try or 3U. Yeah, they've definitely done a lot to try and make monsters not quite so susceptible to stuff when trying to leave an area. Like, I can still get a knockdown, as you just saw, but I can't stop it from flying away by using flash bombs, for example. That used to be a thing you could do. And there we go. A Kut-Ku that lasted slightly longer. Kut-Kus also have some neat texturing on their ears. Oh, I like how we got that just little bit of white creeping in on the red line on the beak. Just showing that the beak has seen some wear. That's neat. But yeah, the ears have some neat texturing. Unfortunately, there's no way to get a good look at it while the Kut-Ku is not alive and well. Because it folds the ears back when it's not in combat. And when it's dead, they're also folded back. Yeah, like right where the wing connects to the rest of the body is where you start seeing some stretching. And also, like, this membrane that I'm standing in right now, there's definitely some stretching there, but most of the wing looks pretty nice. Kut-Ku's got some good texture work. I appreciate that. And that sure is a big crit-looking thing. Or rather, that is a crit. It doesn't just look like a crit. It's just said crit looks big. And that is it for this episode. Join us next time when we take on Gypsaros. See you then, friends.